So we're going to start off talking about something that I coined called the distance and the journey of learning. Before we get into it, let's just understand what AI is, or more specifically, what generative AI is. AI or generative AI can be understood as a sophisticated guessing machine. It's got a lot of data, and every single time you ask a question, it's pulling on all of that data using mathematical equation like regression to try to figure out what the next word is. So in a way, it's a machine. It's a tool. It's something that pulls on data and cannot think. But let us see the questions that we ask this machine. What is it being used for? How to make a girlfriend? Number one. How to find a red flag in a boy? Number two. Number three. Search everything about this paper. What paper? Don't know. Search everything. And four, simple. Help. These are all students that I just met outside. This is all the ways in which it's being utilized by students in this space. And that's why it's really interesting and important for us to think about what AI is, how it's being used, and what are the implications of it. Now, there are different branches of this, the environmental impact of it, the ethical issues of it, the IP issues of it. Each of them deserve their own speech. What I'm going to be focusing on is the learning science part of it. I've been a teacher in a slum area in Delhi. I have taught in underprivileged schools in Delhi, in Bihar. I have worked in private schools in Delhi. I have taught in private schools in Delhi. I've taught in colleges in Delhi. I've taught in university in the US. I've taught in universities in the UK. I have taught in multiple different places, and at the end of the day, one thing I can say is that I am a teacher. And that's why what I'm interested in is the learning part of it, the learning science of it. So, approximately how many strictly questions about helping with homework or classworks do LLMs receive daily? I thought it's going to be like 1 or 2 million. The number behind me, 47 million, is just messages that start with help me with this homework. By comparison, we ask 1 to 3 questions to a teacher every single day. All of this to say that AI won't change the future of education. It's changing the present. It's already here, it's in this room, it's in the students that we see behind us. As an educator, researcher, my focus is on something that I call the learning distance. Let's try to figure out what that is and what that idea is. So what does it mean? There are fancy research words like metacognition, cognitive dissonance, cognitive overload, all of these to refer to this. I understand better when I can visualize it and see it in a way that's easy to understand. So, the learning distance, or the distance of learning. It starts off with the assumption, let's take the circle on this side, on my right hand side, which is where you want to start out doing something, which is you want to write a paper, you want to solve a math question, you want to solve a question that you've been asked, or you want to do research into something, anything. That's the starting point of your journey. The end, logically, is the successful completion, right? People think that the distance between both of them is this, which is just a straight line. It's not. It looks, and the effort and time, it looks slightly different. It looks something like this. When you're moving from what you want to do to the successful completion of what you want to do, you branch out into multiple different places. And going back to the multiple conversations that you've heard today about the importance of collaboration, about the importance of communication, all of these things come through that journey. So if you're trying to solve one math question or write one research paper, you're not just going to learn about that. You're going to learn about, and these are just 4, you're going to learn about so many things. You're going to learn how to fail. You're going to learn how to do research. You're going to learn how to talk to people. You're going to learn collaboration. You're going to learn how to learn and unlearn. This is the learning distance as it was. What's happening now? This becomes this, becomes this. What does this mean? This means that the distance between when you decide you want to do something, and I'll go with the same example, that you want to decide to write a paper, the distance between that and the successful completion shrinks because it's just one prompt and the paper is there. What happens is that effort and time is reduced, and that's great. I was talking to people who were saying that, you know what, the purpose of technology is to reduce effort, is to reduce time, but they forget that we are losing all the learning. we're losing all the different steps along the way. So if you look back, and I'm just going to go back to show you the difference between the two, is this becomes this. Okay, so that's the problem, right? Now, there are different ways in which people have talked about this, but what do we do about it? Well, what's the solution? I have 3 options. You can choose whichever one you want. These are for teachers and students. 1, push the circle back by changing the outcome. Make the journey long again. So you're pushing the circle to the right to try to see if you can get them to think again. What does this look like for teachers? This looks like by getting them to do something that cannot be done by AI. Now that's a very tough question to ask because there are shrinking number of possibilities. But things like coming up and speaking, things like showing your work, all of these things help push that circle to the side. Option 2, incentivize the student to take the journey even if they don't have to. And I'll give you a personal example about this. So when you're teaching economics, because that's something that I have also been working in for the past few months, generally the textbooks around economics, the examples are really boring, it becomes very monotonous. So what do? One of the ways that I taught my students was using Call of Duty. Because Call of Duty has skins, and Call of Duty along with a lot of other games have an entire marketplace of economics in them. When you use that, what does that do? The student can still go back and use the exact same prompt in the exact same LLM to get the exact same answer in 5 seconds. But they might choose not to. Because this time when they go back home and tell their parents that I need to get on and play this game, they can say that it's because they need to learn something. So what we are doing is we are reframing learning. We are reframing learning to think about incentivizing outcomes, incentivizing process, as opposed to just saying that the outcome is what you need to reach. That's option 2. Option 3, we say this is happening, we can't do anything about it, but then we focus on the blank space, which is if these 2 circles are brought together, the effort and the time reduces. If the effort and the time reduces, what happens to the time that is left over? That becomes the space for us as students and educators to think about. If I can do X efficiently in this period of time, what happens to the time that I have left? More often than not, we completely forget about this absence. So again, 3 options, right? I'm going to shift gears and talk about what will the classrooms look like and what should they look like. And just to stay on brand, I of course asked an LLM. The images. According to AI, these are Indian classrooms. So 5 years, we have the same thing. For some reason, we have a brain, but we have laptops in front of every student. So essentially, that's the way that it's looking at technology. 20 years later, the classroom becomes something that is out of a sci-fi movie, where you have all of these audio visuals like on every single table, on every single screen. Now just go back to the fact that all of this is just being generated by a machine. The reason it's putting that up is because in their data set, it's pulling on all the romanticized ideas of technology that we have, that's on the web, that is influencing this. According to me, the answer is, that's my slide. I don't know. As a researcher, we are trained to not make or not guess what's going to happen. Generally, people do end up guessing, but one of the things that we are taught is not to do that. I do not know what's going to happen. I think we are at the precipice. We are at the watershed moment where it will decide which way we go. If we decide to stay the way that we are, if we decide to do exactly what we have been doing with the same kind of stuff, the same kind of assignments, the same kind of learning, we might end up in a negative place. However, if we think about these options, how we think about the different ways in which we can push the circle back, pull the circle, think about other times, that's where we start utilizing AI in the way that it actually helps. This is not the first time that the education sector or education as a whole has had this challenge. 25 years ago, when the internet came, or when access to internet became easier, we had the same fear, which is, oh no, now students can Google everything. There is absolutely no point of teaching or learning. We stand here 2 decades later as examples of why that was not correct. The reason that happened was because education managed to fight back, and education and educators and students pushed back. And that's why a lot of people have asked me today, and generally, is AI good for education? Will AI be good for education? I have 2 problems with that question. One, I don't know. Second, is the framing of that question, will AI be good? Will AI be bad? Puts the burden of responsibility on the technology and not on the people using it. Hence, that question is slightly wrong. However, I do have a guess as to what the classrooms should look like according to me. Options 4. Students need to take more ownership of their journey. The classroom of the future will not be designed by the tech, or should not be designed by tech, but the way that students and teachers engage with tech. There is this underlying assumption that is being sold to us, which is the inevitability of tech, which is, of course you have to use AI. Of course you're going to have to integrate it. You may have to, you may not have to. The way that the future is going to be determined, according to me, is by the decision and the explicit decision making that we have. So students will be at the center of it as opposed to the teachers, which brings me to students. This is what I want to leave you with. Next time you find yourself about to use AI to learn, ask yourself, do you want to go on that journey? The key is to stop, think about the distance, think about the journey, make a decision that's yours. I said this to students outside and I'll say this again. I am not against the use of AI, but I am against the use of mindless AI. And how do you prevent yourself from mindlessly using AI? Is to take that second to stop. Take that second to think. I have had and I have been in positions where I have asked AI for something that I really could have answered in 5 seconds. The entire idea is to take a second and think. And that's why when all of you are finishing an assignment, writing a paper, doing some research, responding to a question, asking for gym tips, asking for the best food options, just take a second and think. Think about what the machine is, think about what you're asking it, and think about if you want to take that journey. This is my belief and hope that the future is not written yet. And it will be written in our classrooms. The architects of what the world will look like will be no other than every single one of you sitting here. Thank you so much for your time.